Welcome to the five Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, and on my right, or your left maybe, we got the fight genius, Alfredo Arteaga. My friend, how are you doing? Can you hear me all right?
All right. Yeah, we're on right now.
Welcome to the Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. My name is Jonathan, a.k.a. Three Piece Combo. And over here we have with us the fight genius, Alfredo Arteaga. My friend, how are you doing?
Good. Doing good. Big UFC card.
Oh, man, it's exciting. So today we're going to go ahead and preview UFC 254, Khabib versus Gaethje, where we have an epic main event. We have the undefeated 28-0 Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on the biggest threat to his record and the biggest threat for him becoming the greatest combat athlete of all time, Justin Gaethje. And on top of that, in the co-main event, we have a number one contenders fight between former champion Robert Whittaker taking on the explosive Jared Cannonier, who's moving from heavyweight down to light heavyweight, now making his fourth fight where he's undefeated in middleweight. Now, let's get right into Khabib versus Gaethje. Alfredo, do you think this is the biggest threat or the biggest challenge of Khabib's career?
Easily. I think it is. Everybody sold themselves on the Conor fight. We know what Conor is. Conor gasses by the third round. The only hope he had really in that fight was to connect. I thought it was a really good fight for 3 rounds. I know a lot of people, it's popular to say that Khabib just steamrolled Conor, but I don't think he did. I thought it was a decent fight for 3 rounds till he did steamroll Conor. But yeah, this is easily the biggest threat until, who knows, maybe Dana White has something up his sleeves. While if Khabib takes care of Gaethje this weekend, so maybe there's something else out there.
We're still to know what that something special is, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But I'll agree with you. I do think that this is the most dangerous man that Khabib has faced thus far. He's faced people that have been able to strike before. You know, he's faced Conor, he's faced Dustin, he's faced Edson Barboza. So he's fought great strikers before.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time that he's facing a striker that's coming from a wrestling background. And Gaethje has been doing wrestling far before he's been doing striking. And he has wrestling all the way up to the college level. So for him, his boxing and his stand-up game is really more of a secondary weapon to him because he knows he has the ability to fall back on his wrestling. And I think something else that's underrated in this fight, I think people are overlooking the fact that Trevor Whitman is in the corner of Justin Gaethje. I think he is definitely a top 3 coach in MMA right now. He's coached many champions. He coaches Usman. I think he coached George St. Pierre, if I'm right. But he's coached a lot of great fighters. So that's another weapon that Gaethje has coming into this fight. Now, going into the wrestling background, do you think Justin can use his wrestling to keep the fight standing?
Yes, I don't think you wanna go to the ground with Khabib. Now, will Khabib shoot on Gaethje? That's another thing, right? Like, is he gonna fight a counterpuncher's fight, or I'm really confused by how this fight is gonna come off. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I know what Gaethje has to do to win, and I really think just box him. And I was watching a few fights, and I was like, okay, what was the last time that I remember somebody that was this good on the ground that just got beat by a boxer? And I went way back, and I don't know if you remember the fight, but BJ Penn when he lost to Frankie Edgar the first time.
I haven't seen that fight, no.
Okay, watch that fight. At the time, BJ Penn, he was an anaconda. Okay, nobody wanted to go to the ground with BJ Penn. Everybody thought it was a joke that he was going to fight Frankie Edgar because Frankie Edgar hadn't had any submission victories at the time. Didn't have high level jiu-jitsu like BJ Penn had. But then Frankie Edgar proceeded to box BJ Penn's face off for 5 rounds. And ever since then, unfortunately, that's what's happened to BJ Penn. So I would default to that's what Gaethje has to do to win this fight.
Yeah, he has to be able to make sure that this fight doesn't go on the ground. And by neutralizing the ground game, by keeping his distance and circling and doing all the right things with his footwork, and like you said, just winning by boxing, because I don't think he's going to be able to throw leg kicks. I think if he throws a leg kick, Khabib is going to scoop for that single leg. And
Mhm.
so I think you're right. If Gaethje is to win this fight and keep it standing, boxing is going to be the absolute way he's going to do it. Boxing and footwork, because if he's able to circle and make sure that he doesn't get caught close to the fence where Khabib is most dangerous, and be able to circle out of those tight encounters, he has a much higher likelihood of winning this fight. Now, if the fight stays standing, how big of the gap is? How big is the gap in the stand-up game for Khabib and Gaethje? Do you think Gaethje is miles ahead of Khabib on the stand-up game?
Miles is probably right. I don't like his disposition. I'm talking about Khabib here. I don't like his disposition when he goes toe to toe. Sometimes he drops his head and he uses like an Eastern European style, which is to basically cage up, and that doesn't work. It's that Eastern European boxing style does not work against American boxers. It just doesn't, because you got to be a little bit more fluid, and judges like to see fluidity. They don't like to see a defensive cage. So, that's fine if you have one punch knockout power, but Khabib he's not hopeless, but he's not a guy that you would compare with the biggest punchers in the division.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. Khabib's TKOs usually just come by way of ground and pound. He
Yeah.
doesn't typically connect with people, but I think something that's underrated is, since people are so afraid of his takedowns, their hands are always much lower. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and one thing that Khabib always does is that when he goes for that single leg, he always puts his elbow and his forearm out on his opponent's chest, and he's so strong that everybody grabs for it. You know, so yeah, it is interesting that you mentioned that, because that's something that he can use to his advantage.
Exactly. And Justin is going to be wary and thinking in the back of his head, takedown, takedown, takedown. So
Hmm.
if Khabib goes for that takedown and fakes the takedown and actually swings that overhand right, which he caught Connor with, he'll catch
Yes.
people with that because he knows they're going to bite for the takedown. That could be something, but I think you're right on that. With the stand up game, it's really much further ahead for Justin Gaethje, because he puts people out. Of his 22 wins, 19 have been by standing TKOs, which is insane. He's 22-2, I believe,
Hmm.
and or 20, yeah, and of 19 of his wins, of his 22 wins, have been by TKO. So his striking is so far ahead. You really saw it being able showcased in the Tony Ferguson fight, because most people that he hits just go out like a light, and Tony Ferguson just kind of kept walking him down, and El Cucuy did as best as he could to keep him staying on his feet, and he didn't go down. You know what I mean? No matter all those nasty
Hmm.
shots that he took from Justin, and obviously you have to take that fight a little bit into context, because Tony was preparing for Khabib the whole time, somebody who's going to try to take him down and grapple with him. So he's probably working more off his back, his jiu-jitsu. So when he comes in and he fights somebody on short notice like Gaethje for the
Yeah.
interim belt, he doesn't have the stand-up game prepared as much. But Gaethje did his job to the absolute T. He listened to his corner, like you said. Trevor Whitman is there on his corner. He listened to his corner. He punched his face in. When after the first two rounds, his coach noticed that he was throwing 100% in everything and that he was going to gas out. So he said, take 10%, take 10% off of every shot, so you can conserve a little bit more now. And when he did that, he just ended it. It wasn't even close for the rest of the fight, because he knew he had the power, but he put the precision in there to match that. Now, let's go ahead and, last week we took the underdog's mindset when we took Lopez. Let's take the underdog in this fight. Let's think, how would Justin win this fight going into Saturday?
Well, I think he has to keep his distance, but he does have to go for it, and he just has to get volume of punches. I'm not going to say that he has to do a Colby Covington impersonation, but he has to do a Colby Covington impersonation. If he could get off 40 punches per round, that's going to look good for the judges, and just avoid takedowns. It's easier said than done, but that's why Khabib is the best in the world. If it was easy to do, he would have been beaten by now, right?
Exactly.
So yes, I know I'm asking a ton, but you gotta ask a ton when you gotta beat Khabib. So we're talking about 40 punches per round and avoid takedowns. And if you are taken down, you just gotta survive. And you gotta counter what Khabib likes to move you toward the fence and inch you toward the fence. You gotta keep that fight in the middle of the octagon, because Khabib just knows his territory inside the octagon. He knows how to manipulate angles. So yeah, that's basically what he has to do. It's a tall order, but you know how it becomes a lot easier? Land a good right hand. So while you're doing all of that, if you could get the good one in, that could end the fight for you as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no way that Justin gets taken down in this fight and he wins this fight.
No.
I think what he has to do is, because he's prepared to know, he's coming in knowing that he's going to get taken down. So every fight starts on the feet. For the first 3 minutes, you need to survive and you need to do as much damage as you can. And if he does take you down, minimize that damage that you're on the ground. Because if you're able to do more damage and the judges see that, you can chip out 2 or 3 rounds just by the power you have, even if you're not able to escape all of the takedowns. So for him, keeping the fight on the feet is really going to be important. And like you said, staying away from the edge of the cages. If he gets by the cage and close to the fence, it's game over, because he's just going to put you in deep water, and he's gonna go ahead and sink you in territory. Now let's go ahead and dig into Khabib a little bit. How do you think Khabib gets it done?
Well, he has to, I know it's boring and a lot of people hate it, but yeah, he has to fight that shell. He has to fight that box defense and absorb punches and get the takedowns. And as you score takedowns, judges notice it. Judges know that your name is Khabib, all right? Khabib Nurmagomedov. So they know that they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt if they see you getting takedowns. And if you win a boring 5-round fight that way, so be it. You're the champ, right?
And I don't think it'll be boring. And I
No.
think you're absolutely right. But Khabib said it in the press conference today that Justin and Conor are the 2 most dangerous guys in the first round that he's faced. But after the first round, when it gets in the second, third, and fourth round, they start to gas out and they become just normal fighters. So for Khabib, all he has to do really is survive the first 2 rounds and survive that early onslaught from Gaethje. And once he's able to take him down one time, he's just going to sap the energy out of him. And you can only fight the takedown for so long, because once he gets you on the ground, it's so hard to get back up. Even if you get back up, the time for the round is already done and the damage is already done. So let's go ahead and get into predictions, because I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups that we've seen when it comes to Khabib. So who are you picking in this fight, and what do you think it comes by?
I think that we're going to have some moments in this fight where people are going to think that the belt's going to change hands, but I got Khabib. They'll stop it on the ground in the 4th round.
Yeah, that was my prediction as well. This fight isn't unlosable for Khabib. There definitely comes a danger when facing Justin Gaethje, someone that's come in and knocked almost everybody out that's been in his path. He can come in and all it takes is one punch, and that puncher's chance is always there for you when you have that power like him. But like you said, it's more than likely going to be Khabib going and taking Justin to deep waters and drowning him. And they call it father's plan. If you watch the countdown episode, obviously his father has passed away recently, but his plan is to make sure that he doesn't strike with strikers, because sometimes Khabib will get emotional, and that's where his father comes in as a great coach for him. Is he makes sure that his son stays on the right path. And for Khabib, it's very simple: take it down, go ahead and wear him out. And I think it's going to be pretty similar to you. I'm going to go ahead and take a 4th round. I'm going to take a submission. I'm going to take a 4th round submission. I think he's going to get a choke under there. Gaethje is a great wrestler, but wrestlers aren't comfortable on their back. The defense will be there, but they're not as great on the back. So I think Khabib will be able to get a choke in. Now, let's get into this super, super exciting co-main event, which could main event a lot of different places, because this is such a great fight. We have Robert Whitaker taking on Jared Cannonier. Now, this is going to be the number 1 fight, and the winner of this fight is going to go out and take on Israel Adesanya. So let's match these guys up a little bit. Obviously, both of these guys are really stand up and bang guys. They're not going to really take you down too much, which we'll get a little bit into. But out of the 2 strikers, who would you say is the better striker of the 2?
Cannonier, and I don't think that it's particularly close. I like his punches better. They're straighter. They're snappier. He gets behind his jab, which a lot of people, if you watch a lot of UFC fighters, sometimes they get a little bit ahead of themselves. They get a little bit emotional and they get out in front of their punches. Robert Whitaker does that a lot. I don't like that. I like that Cannonier stays behind his jab and brings the right hand behind it. He constantly has his defensives up. He's a much better boxer. And I did not like Whitaker's last fight against Till. I thought he was wild and excessively aggressive. And I've just felt that Till just left so many opportunities to win that fight in that octagon that any better fighter definitely, and Izzy Adesanya, it would have not been pretty for Robert Whitaker in that fight against Till. I just think that he's tailor made. If he fights something similar to what he did against Darren Till, I think Cannonier gets him out of there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that Cannonier is the more powerful striker, but I think Whitaker does have the ability to be the more technical striker. If you look back into, recently with his fights against Till and Adesanya, he really wasn't the same guy. But before, when he was facing guys like Yoel Romero, he was eating those shots, but he was making sure that he was giving more than he was eating. And now it seems like he transitioned to where he's taking a lot more and that
Mm-hmm.
damage is compiled over the period of time. So I definitely think that if you were to put the punches on a meter, Cannonier has the more powerful punches and that his defense is a little bit more sound because he's used to facing heavyweights. He started off in the heavyweight division, and with those guys, all it takes is one. It doesn't even have to
Right.
be fast, All
Yeah,
it
I guess
takes is
those guys, you do have to stay behind your jab.
yeah. So when you're
Yeah.
facing guys that heavy, I don't think that you have the ability to be anything less than super sound defensively. So I think Cannonier is the better striker as well. Now, something I will say is that I feel like the way that Cannonier is coming in this fight, Robert's going to be able to hit him a couple times, but I don't think it's going to hurt him because he's been able to take shots from heavyweights. Now, since Cannonier has so much power, do you think Whitaker takes Cannonier down like he did in the Till fight when he showed a little bit of takedown ability, or do you think he keeps it standing?
I think that should be his game plan. I think that he's going to want to score. I don't think he wants to bang with. I don't think he wants fight of the night. Okay,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice to win that bonus, but I'll tell you, I'll make a. I guess I'll make an extra prediction. If this fight wins fight of the night, Robert Whitaker didn't win.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Okay, so I don't think he wants fight of the night. I think he wants to fight. Yes, a technical fight. Get behind your jab. People don't like to see it, but it's effective. Get your takedowns, score, win the decision. You don't have to get a finish. Maybe when one of these times that you take him down, you can get a position. You could get who knows. Maybe you can mount Cannonier and then you can finish him then.
Hmm.
But if not, don't go for it. It's
And let's
not there for you. Not against
right.
this guy.
Exactly. Let's not forget Robert Whitaker is a former champion too, so he
Mm-hmm.
has definitely the championship pedigree, and this is 3 rounds to him. So he's normally used to fighting for 5 rounds. So I think the last time he fought, even against Till, was a 5 round main event, and then before that was Adesanya, and then you had the Romero fights. So he's been fighting 5 rounds for a bunch of times. So now he can come in and he can get on that gas tank and really force that takedown if that's something he has to do. Drive that takedown, get hold of those legs, lock slow hands together, and drive their hips to the floor. So what do you think's gonna happen in this fight? We already, you heard your fight of the night prediction potentially, but where do you think this one's going?
I think this fight has fight of the night written all over it, which tells me that Robert Whitaker is probably not going to win. I think he can win, but it's so difficult to dance through the raindrops. I think he probably is ahead on the scorecards when he gets caught early in the fourth round and it ends.
Yeah, I can see something like that happening too. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and give Robert a chance to keep his chin, and I'm gonna take a decision for Cannonier because Robert's faced some guys that has knocked people out before. Like he's faced Yoel Romero, he's taking those shots. He's a different fighter now. He's come back a little bit more motivated. But so I'll give him the chance that his chin survives, but I won't give him a chance in this fight. I think Jared Cannonier is too powerful. He has that heavyweight power, and all it's going to take is one shot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Cannonier. I'm going to take him by decision. But I think it'll be a really fun fight. I think Robert's going to eat some shots, but I don't think that'll sleep him. I think he'll be able to sustain the ability to stand up, and it'll be fight of the night for sure. So let's get a little bit into some rapid fire questions. We got some other nice fights on the card. We have two guys. Winner gets a top 5 opponent in the heavyweight division. The top 5 in the heavyweight is stacked right now. We still don't know what John Jones is doing, if he's going to come into heavyweight or what's his beef looking like with Adesanya. So we have Volkov versus Harris. What's your prediction for that fight?
I'm a big fan of Harris. I don't think he's the better fighter in this one. I think Volkov dominates most of the fight. Harris gets one in, and we get a pretty big UFC moment. I got Harris by an upset KO. No
Nice.
particular round. It
Yeah.
comes somewhere.
Yeah. I'm taking the same thing actually because he fought really well against Overeem. You know what I mean? And I really think that he could have won that fight if the referee just decided to stop it because it was that close. But I think chasing that finish made him really tired. And he also, I mean, it's a really hard topic, but he lost his daughter, and that was the first fight coming back from losing his daughter. So there's so much pressure there. But Walt is such a talented guy, and he's coming in winning almost, I think, all of his fights he's won by knockout. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take him by a knockout too. I think but we shouldn't be surprised if Volkov takes this fight and tries to take Harris to the ground where he's weak at because Volkov is good at takedowns, and if he does that, Volkov can win a decision. But I'm going to go ahead and take the upset. I think Harris comes in as a little bit more motivated than his last fight and take him by a decision or by a knockout win. Now we have a rematch coming up from earlier this year, Ankalaev versus Kudalaba. Now this is I think the third time this fight is being rebooked. These guys hate each other. The first fight they Kudalaba went into Ankalaev's face, and then he pushed him, and they had to get separated before the fight even started. So that happened, and then the referee stoppage wasn't good at all. They were both still on their feet. What do you think happens in this fight? You know, I think the final chapter of this one to move forward in these guys' career.
Yeah, usually when these things happen, you don't get fireworks. Although there could be in this one. I'm just gonna go ahead and take Ankalaev by decision. I think he just wins something technical this time around.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ankalaev, but I'm going to take him by knockout. Um, Kudalaba comes in. He throws more, but he misses more. For Ankalaev, he hits about 55% of his shots, and for Kudalaba, he hits 39%. And the defense is much better for Ankalaev. He's defending at a 67% rate compared to the 48% rate for Kudalaba. And Kudalaba is really shown to really gas out early in the fights. So if he comes out and if these guys really hate each other and he starts swinging really wild like he tends to do, I can see him gassing out and then late second round, Ankalaev go ahead and piece him up. Now we have a kind of a UFC mainstay, the 7 foot tall Stefan Struve taking on Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa. And the winner might get a ranked opponent. Now, who do you think take this one?
I'm gonna take experience on this one, and I'll take Steven Struve. I think he just has enough, and I've only seen Tuivasa fight a couple of times, but he's never struck me as like main event material. I think this could be an entertaining fight, but I'm gonna take experience in this one. I'm gonna take Steven Struve.
Yeah, I agree that Struve has definitely the experience side, but I'm taking Ty in this fight. First of all, his nickname is Bam Bam, so you have to go with the guy whose nickname is Bam. But he said in an interview he feels like he's fighting for his UFC career. And one thing you always got to see with guys that are always in a corner, if you corner an animal, that's when they're most dangerous.
Yes.
And this guy is known for his knockouts, and maybe he's been a little bit too timid lately into his recent fights. And Struve has been knocked out quite a few times, and he's been in this sport for a long time. And for him, if it all it'll take was one punch. So I think that Struve has the technical ability to keep this fight a little bit standing for a little while. But I think Ty's going to come in, be explosive, and he'll catch him with one of them. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have the undefeated Shakhmov Rakhmonov, the Kazakhstanian, making his debut on the same week that the movie Borat's coming out. So I'm excited for that. But he's taking on Cowboy Alex Oliveira. What's your predictions for that fight?
Well, I'm a big fan of Cowboy Oliveira, and I've never seen other guy fight. I know he's 12-0. I couldn't find film on him, so I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me, but I'll just take Cowboy Oliveira, sight unseen. Although I have a suspicion that they're bringing a monster over here, so I don't know. Maybe you've seen him fight, and you can enlighten me.
Yeah. Well, let's take it this way. He's the number one ranked Kazakh welterweight in the world. So he's the
Okay, yeah,
number one ranked.
that's not good for Cowboy.
So I mean, but it is a smaller region, of course. But he's the number one, ranked Kazakhstanian in the world at welterweight, and he's finished all of his fights. So I think he's an M1 global champion. His fights were more on YouTube because they're free because they're not on as big of a promotion. But I think that he has something that might be a little bit different for Cowboy to deal with. Now, Oliveira's been in the sport for a while, but Shakvat is coming in, and he has the ability to be on the ground or stand on the feet. He has good striking. He's an exciting fighter, and I think for somebody who's coming in as a champion, you have something to prove. And Alex Oliveira is coming in. He said he wants to fight Anthony Pettis next, so these guys are really have high hopes coming in because you have one undefeated guy and one guy that's hoping to crack the top 15 and make it close up there. But I'm going to take the undefeated Shavkat because I think he's coming in a little more explosive. He has a little bit better something to prove. He does have a little bit better power. If you look at the tape, he has a little bit more power than Oliveira. Oliveira was really wonky, and he has a style where you know that he was boxing somewhere that wasn't professional before he started fighting, because he doesn't fight really traditional at all. But he has the ability to keep it standing. But you'll see him take damage a lot of times. He tends to get caught, and you'll see a lot of times him go ahead and go into the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and take the undefeated Shavkat Romanov. Now, moving on to some of the last predictions we want to make for the card. What do you think is the sleeper fight of this card for this evening or for Saturday evening?
I think Harris Volkov. I think you could there could be fireworks in there, and I think we could potentially have like one of those great UFC moments where Volkov is dominating most of the fight, and one punch gets in, and it pulls it out of the fire for Walt Harris. So I want to say that's probably the sleeper fight. There's going to be an exciting moment in that fight, I feel.
Yeah, that's a good one because I really think the explosiveness of both fighters sets up for something good to happen. I'm going to take the co-main event in the prelims, which is the Casey Kenny versus Nathaniel Wood. Both of these guys are really sound on the striking. They're both really sound on the ground. They both take each other down, take other fighters down, and they attempt submissions. So I think this is a fight that can stay standing, and these guys can really go to war. And I think another one that we shouldn't sleep on is that last fight we talked about, the Shavkat fight versus Oliveira, because those are two guys that are exciting. And Shavkat's coming in an M1 champion. He's undefeated, so look out for him to make a splash coming in. Now, what do you think is going to be the fight of the night?
Fight of the night. I think I said it earlier, and yeah, Whitaker Cannonier. I think that's probably going to be fight of the night. I would say that Whitaker's going to fight a relatively intelligent fight, be ahead in the scorecards, and then fireworks come off in the fourth, and it ends it. And I think that's fight of the night. And I stand by what I said. I think that if it wins fight of the night, I don't see how Whitaker wins.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the fact that, we've seen Whitaker, he's been in so many great performances, minus the fight with Till, really, but he's been in really so many great performances. And then you have a guy that's not going to stop coming forward and a guy that can eat shots. You know that Cannonier's going to come in. And even if he gets tagged by a couple by Rob, he's not going to put him down necessarily. Mm-hmm. So I think this is one to set up for a really good fight, really good finish. Like you said, I think Cannonier's going to go ahead and get that finish and take the fight of the night. Now, for next week on Fight Week on 5, we do have a boxing championship. Alfredo, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Gervonta Davis is fighting what you got to consider his most dangerous opponent ever. It's Leo Santa Cruz. So that should be really exciting. We also have the American debut of the Monster, Inoue. Now that's going to be, they're giving him somebody to kill
right.
on Saturday night.
Match, basically.
It's a squash match, but it's going to be fun to see him here stateside. So although we could watch him on TV, but he's here now. So he's going to be fighting for championships in the very near future. But yeah, Gervonta Davis, Leo Santa Cruz. Here's the thing about that fight. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be nip and tuck because unlike Teofimo Lopez, who, yes, he was a live underdog, he ended up winning the fight, but Teofimo Lopez is extremely dedicated, young. Gervonta Davis can get a little fat around the edges, not care too much. He doesn't come correct in this fight. Leo Santa Cruz will beat him. So there's always that doubt. But he's a star. It'll get plenty of eyeballs. I'll be very interested in watching that fight next week. And we'll talk about it right here.
Yeah, we'll be right here right next week. We want to thank all you guys for checking out Fight Week on 5 this week. We have an exciting card coming up this weekend with UFC 250 Khabib versus Gaethje, and with that number 1 contender fight with Whitaker versus Jared Cannonier. Thank you guys for checking out Fight Week on 5. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and have a good one.